Okay. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Duey.
How are you?
You're back in. I'm good. You're back in your native habitat there.
I am sitting courtside, trying to keep distance between me and people because I'm still just had a heart attack. I'm still diabetic. I'm still all those things that wouldn't make it good if I were to catch any of this stuff. So.
Yeah.
I'm hanging out, but I did want to come back because at Austin Tennis Academy we are open, and so I figured it'd be a chance to kind of have some ambiance behind us in tennis as it opens back up. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm still not playing. Every time I get close to ready to go back out on the court, I read something or see something that freaks me out, and I'm like, nope, not yet, not yet.
The reality is, I think we're going to be in this for a while. So, I think at some point in time, you just have to make that decision of the risk is acceptable. And there's going to be a risk. Otherwise, we're going to be just kind of holed up in our own world for a while.
It's funny.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we booked plane tickets to head back to Atlanta for 10 days or so in late June. And just the process of doing that is so different now. Everything's different, right? But just trying to get back to Atlanta, and we can't fly nonstop from Orange County anymore. They've canceled those flights. So now we have to go down to San Diego, which is about 45 minutes south of us, and fly out of that airport if we want a nonstop flight, and trying to figure out the logistics of traveling with the dog and how do you avoid other people and keep the dog away from us. I mean, it's this whole craziness, right? So we all have our as we say in the Jewish world, our Mishigash story about. For me, like I said, the tennis, I'm just not ready yet, and I am so happy people are out and feel comfortable being out, and I hope I get there soon because, like I said, I like get really close, and I'm like, all the text messages are coming in from my teammates out here saying, we're looking for a fourth, who wants to play, and I get really close to typing me, and then I'm like, nah, not yet. So.
Well, I hope that the people that are around you and that you feel comfortable, sooner rather than later. Because one thing that I'm finding for myself is the longer I stay secluded, the more I feel like I'm going to need to be secluded until this is absolutely all over. And I'm not sure as it's ever going to be all over. It's going to mutate into something which is more manageable, but there's still going to be some risk, just as there is with the flu that we see now is a progression from the 1917, 1918 pandemic, and it just kind of became a little bit different strain, but it's still around with us, and it still kills all kinds of people every year.
Right.
I just don't want it to be one of mine. So
yeah, exactly.
We do have a slightly new normal. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, we're going to talk about summer and what's happening in tennis with summer upon us now. A lot of areas, school is finished for the year. Memorial Day marked the end of the school year. I know here in California, I think they've got this week of school and maybe one more week before the kids are officially done with school for the summer. But I'm seeing all sorts of emails and social media posts about summer camps and UTR events popping up and all types of opportunities for our kids to be back on the court. So obviously y'all are back in session at ATA. What's on the agenda for the summer for you guys?
Well, we're not having camps. As a matter of fact, we interviewed our CEO, Jack Newman, who may walk by here at any moment in time, and I'll bring him in to speak specifically. But we recorded a little video talking about what is going on here this summer, and it doesn't include summer camps, and I'm not sure if we have that where we can play it, but if we do, now would probably be a great time.
We've got COVID-19 still out there. There's a virus that's existing. We want to not get the virus, and we don't want to spread the virus. So that's the challenge, right? We're going to try to operate in a way that doesn't allow those two things to happen or minimizes the chances of those two things happening. I think it's the same concerns that everybody faces. You know, they want their kids to be safe. They want their kids to wash their hands. They want their kids to, you know, not be coughed on or sneezed on. And, you know, by the way that we're trying to organize things, we're trying to minimize that. You know, tennis court's 78 feet long, so there's a lot of space between people on a tennis court. So I think that this isn't a dining hall. This isn't a enclosed environment. There's less risk of getting virus when, you know, the virus has a hard time finding you, which is what we're trying to do with the 78 feet of the tennis court. Following the CDC guidelines, creating social distance, doing extra cleaning, providing as safe an environment as we possibly can is the #1 goal for the summer, just as it has been since we reopened. We're trying to do the best job we can to create a safe environment, to create an environment where kids can get better and they can maximize their improvement over the summer.
Great stuff. I mean, makes sense.
Yeah. Right.
So what's it look like in terms of? Sorry, what's it look like in terms of numbers for y'all? Like, how many kids are on a court? How many kids are at the facility at a time? Or are there limits on those things?
So the way it looks right at the moment, if I were to turn around right now, and unfortunately, although I guess maybe if I get brought full screen, might be able to see it. I'm looking straight across at 4 courts. So a bank of 2, a little walkway, and then another bank of 2. On this court, there are 4 players practicing on 2 courts. A couple of juniors, young man who's playing challenger level, and they're working out. Then the walkway, the 3rd court over is a coach doing a private lesson, and there is nobody on next court. We have, you know, you can see behind me, there are a couple of parents watching practice here as their daughter has just finished up. You know, so we have, you know, a bunch of courts, 14 courts, 12 hard courts, 2 clay courts. Practices look like, afternoon practices will look like 3 sessions. The sessions go for an hour and a half with a 15-minute break in between each session. So the goal is to have 2 people on a court. I guess if we look at 14 courts, 2 people, 24 kids at a time. So about 75 kids over the course of an afternoon that are in the academy program here practicing. And so, you know, there's a fair number of people still getting their tennis in. Not all of it will be used for group lessons. Some of it, a couple of courts are set aside for private lessons throughout the day during the summer. And, you know, so it's a lot of people getting their tennis in. And part of what has been the thought here is that kids are getting more court space. So there's a lot of one-on-one where before the economic model kind of dictated that there'd be 4 people on a court and everybody was pretty close, or maybe you did a drill every once in a while where there'd be 6 people, 4 at one end, 2 at the other, doing something like that. That doesn't exist. It also means there's less revenue per court coming in. And so trying to balance out, well, so maybe they're getting a little bit less court time to accommodate everybody, but the quality of the court time, because they're getting the full movement throughout the court, getting to hit more balls and never waiting for their turn to hit. You know, how does that balance out? And is it, you know, worth the same amount to a player? Because are they moving forward that much faster based on it's 2 per court rather than 3 to a court or 4 to a court? So,
Gotcha. I'm looking at the folks behind you. Are the parents, it doesn't look like they're wearing masks out there. Is that not a requirement?
I mean, it's kind of a requirement, but, you know, you don't wear a mask in your own house. So if I'm sitting next to Kim, who I live with, and I don't wear a mask at home, why do I necessarily wear a mask if I'm anywhere else? So if we're out going for a walk, I don't wear a mask if I'm going for a walk with her. It's the same air that, I'm breathing and everything else. So then there's that question of, well, if you are with other people, and some of the things we're trying to get figured out. We started out with a thing of there were no parents sitting courtside at all. That you just say the kids were allowed to come, and that was it. The challenge is certainly the kids, more so than the adults. They want to congregate, they want to hang out right next to each other. Keeping them apart when they're on site and there's not a specific program that they're in it's a challenge. I'm not gonna lie about it. That it's the thing that concerns me the most is that they have this sense of they're somewhat immune, and to a large degree they are immune. While there's young kids are now getting this strange respiratory thing and multiple organ thing, that the kids that are here, the teenagers have largely remained where they're not getting severe coronavirus. They're catching it. They might be asymptomatic. They're able to pass it on, and that's the big challenge, right? Who do they bring it? Who do they bring it to? And this is the longest I've just hung out here.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to ask you is, for now that the kids are out of school, they need a place to hang out, but is the tennis club the right place for them to be hanging out? In my opinion, it's as safe as anywhere. I guess they're better off hanging out in an outdoor space where they've got, room for the virus to dissipate if somebody does sneeze or cough. But at the same time, I don't know. I have really mixed feelings about that. And I suspect that's one of the challenges for facilities around the country as they're figuring out what summer is going to look like for them. Because the typical tennis camp in the summer is the parents drop the kids off at 9 a.m. and they pick them up at 5 p.m. Kids are there all day. They're not necessarily on court. There may be a
pool, there may be a ping pong table, there may be all of those things. Here there's not indoor hangout space. If they're hanging out, they are hanging out outdoors. There are many indoor spaces because we actually have an accredited private school here. So there's classrooms, multiple classrooms on the facility. There's an indoor gym, but they're not at this point in time. Actually, even last summer, they're not supposed to be hanging out in the fitness center, and the classrooms aren't open for them to just hang out in. So if they're here, they're off for a walk in the woods or something like that. They're not just hanging out indoors. But
what are you hearing from? I was going to say, what are you hearing from your colleagues around the country, around the world, in terms of what they're doing for summer?
Camps. It is. I think it is.
But do they look like what yours looks like?
No. I would say a lot of people seem to think that because we're no longer mandatory stay at home, that the virus has left us. And so therefore, much as we may have seen the Memorial Day weekend pictures of people congregating in pool parties and things like that, there is a sense of tennis is back to being normal, and so camps and things are going on. We purposefully changed the name of camp, so there are no camps here. What I talked about was the afternoon academy. In the morning, we're doing what is this summer referred to as summer semis. So there are essentially the same thing, same ratio of kids per court, and these are for the kids that are more entry level, where traditionally you may have had more kids standing in a line and doing hand feeding or racket feeding out of a cart. That doesn't exist. So made a conscious decision to take the summer and figure out if there's a model which is sustainable over the next school year which has the smaller number of people per court, higher coach to player ratio. But what I'm hearing from a lot of places is, it's back to, let's see how many people we can get on the space, and still maintain some kind of distancing. But the reality is the distancing which will happen in reality is undoubtedly smaller than what we planned for. So if we haven't planned for 12 feet per person, and when it shrinks to 6 and we only planned for 6, now it shrinks down to 2.
Right.
We're not doing our part. But I think most of tennis is actually in the United States. So internationally, it's a different story, because there are still places where, they haven't started letting players back in the country. The mandates are pretty strong, of how they're going about opening back up. It's just, here.
Well, and we're seeing new
mentality
hot spots crop up, right? South America's and Central America are in trouble right now. And there's a lot of tennis that happens in those South American and Central American countries. And, they're seeing a huge surge in cases right now. So it's, this is going to be one of those summers, I think, it's going to be unique. From an economic standpoint, I guess you guys are positioned well that for whatever reason, and I don't know what the books look like at ATA, but y'all are able to reduce the number of players per court, which reduces the profit margin. I mean, let's be real. The way tennis instruction is profitable is to cram as many players on a court with one coach as possible, right? And that just really isn't feasible right now. And so these camps, these facilities, these coaches are working under a very different economic model than they're used to. And that presents a huge challenge. How do you stay open, if you're losing money by being out on the court, or if you're not making enough to cover your costs?
And that's the challenge, isn't it? At Boston Tennis Academy, this has not ever been the low-cost leader. If you're looking for the budget program, this is not the place to go. As a matter of fact, you can't just sign up to be in this program. You have to be sent an invitation letter each year. And so each year, some kids actually are not invited back to the program for the following year. So this is not, the model has never been one which is about being the lowest cost and the largest number of people on court, but it is also pretty close to a break-even model. I mean, the way it has been set up is that it's not one that's making a lot of money. Could have, said, well, it can have high prices and large number of people per court, but that has not ever been Coach Newman's philosophy. It has been set up. I guess the only reason, and this is in an interview he did with us, the only reason he didn't set this up as a nonprofit is because the Small Business Administration doesn't do small business loans to nonprofits. So he had to set it up as a for-profit, but it is essentially a nonprofit business model.
I know that model well.
Unfortunately, I learned too much about it too. Not because of the Small Business Administration, just because of learning to be an entrepreneur over time. What's the word on your street? Because I've seen you're still getting lots of interviews with people, so many people are still willing to talk about what they're doing. What have you heard?
Well, I mean, same that you're hearing is, everybody seems to be open back up. There are, like I said, junior events happening. I know there are a lot of UTR events happening at a variety of clubs around the country and around the world. There are professional events being live streamed, not the top players on the ATP and WTA tour, but kind of that next tier down. A lot of former college players and, lower ranked players are having opportunities now to play and compete for prize money, which I'm really happy to see that for them. But what's interesting is it's all very local, right? So the players competing in an event are all people who live within that locale or are training within that locale. And so there's no travel involved, there's no hotel involved, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that UTR has to be loving what they're seeing right now, because this is the UTR model, right? Play close to home, train close to home, compete with those in your neighborhood. And that's what we're seeing both at the junior level and at the professional level. Now, ITA Summer Circuit is still on the schedule for July. They've made some changes. They update their website all the time. So I haven't checked it today to see, if anything's changed. But as of now, those events are still on the calendar. And for those of you with juniors that are in high school or are college level players or will be entering college in the fall, I want to say I love those ITA Summer Circuit events. So if there is one being held near you where you are comfortable for your child to play, I know registration's open to become, I don't know, a member of the ITA, a player member. I don't know what their terminology is, so that you can register for their events. There's a whole procedure to go through. But so those are happening. And again, we're seeing these junior events happening, some using Fast Four format, some using traditional, best of 6, 2 out of 3 set format, most using no ad scoring just to speed things along. But at least tennis is happening, and I think that's a good thing. We'll see, we'll see what happens in the fall. And if school goes back, if colleges open up, I mean, there's so many unknowns still at this point, right? And I think what we've
We're
all
dropping
learned
college
is,
tennis programs that college
I
tennis is
mean,
evaporating before our eyes.
yeah, which we expected, right? We expected this to happen. And so our whole model of what junior tennis means and what it's for, its purpose, I think we need to all be really reevaluating that. And not to plug myself, but I'm going to plug myself. My podcast this week is an interview I did with my son, who gives a very raw and not always positive look at his years in tennis. And I think it's an important interview for people to watch and listen to. We have a video version and an audio version available, just because the way that college is looking right now, college tennis may not be able to be the carrot anymore. And so we need to find other reasons to put our kids in this sport. And as parents, we need to adjust how we look at the sport and how we guide our children through the sport. I think we're in the midst of seeing a lot of big changes.
Well, I I think it's coaches need to not dangle that carrot. To be honest with you, I don't know. As a parent, I'll speak for myself, and so as a parent, I didn't start my kid in anything with the anticipation that they were going to get a college scholarship. What I was looking for was to find something that would occupy their time, that they enjoyed doing, and with a group of adults who would be able to nurture their love, appreciation, and help them learn whatever additional lessons there were to be learned through youth sports. And I'm a huge believer in the other lessons that come from youth sports. But then there are all of the coaches who start talking about college scholarships, and they largely because they promote themselves by players that I've coached have received X number of dollars in college scholarships over however many years. And, those are the players that are held up as the role models for the players coming through. But I guess here's where I'm going to be honest. I think that's a dumb reason to play junior sports. Period. I think it's ridiculous. While I agree that the college athlete experience is very different than just going there to party and hit the books. And those teammates become lifelong friends, and the shared experiences are huge. If you want to pay for your kids' college. Just take the money you're going to spend on tennis from the time they're 7 years old till they're put it in, a good mutual fund, and it will be paid for.
Well, and I think another piece of that message, Dewey, is, for my child, and I can only speak to my personal experience, though I've certainly heard stories from thousands of parents over the years that I've been doing Parenting Aces. For my child, college tennis was always the end goal for him. That was the reason he continued to work hard and play higher and higher level tournaments over the years, and why it became more and more expensive for us as a family, both in terms of dollars and in time over the years as he continues to develop. So I guess what I'm saying is that I think getting your child involved in tennis and learning the sport and learning the lessons, as you're saying, of the sport is still super important. And tennis is a great vehicle for a lot of things. However, I think what we're going to start to see if college tennis opportunities continue to decline is the amount of travel and money that gets dumped in on such a large level. There, of course, will always be those families who have the means and the desire to continue to throw money into their child's tennis for whatever reasons, whether it's travel opportunities or there's so many reasons people do this. It's not, there's not just one. But I think for the vast majority of tennis families, maybe this is going to be a wake-up call that you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend tens or even hundreds of thousands of dollars on your child's tennis in order for them to get the benefits of it, the perks of it. And I suspect that even if college tennis opportunities do keep going down, having that on your resume that you dedicated yourself to a sport to achieve a certain level of proficiency at a sport, that you continue to work hard at it year after year after year, looks really good on a college application and looks really good on a job application.
Yep.
So there's still plenty of reasons to put your child in.
Yeah, the Stanfords, the Harvards, the great academic institutions still have a place for people who played youth sports, because they recognize that if all you do are take in class valedictorians and salutatorians, that what you have are a bunch of people who have never failed academically, and some of those people are going to be at the bottom of their class, right? And so you get a bad psychological outcome if you have a whole bunch of people that are having their very first failure in that place. They don't have system because they don't really know the people. They have freedom that they've never had before, and there's a lot of bad outcomes. So what they do is they make a place for athletes who recognize that I've lost a football game, I've lost a tennis tournament, I've lost all of those things, and then they provide within the culture of the university those people who are resilient by having faced those things before, and then those that have not had failure before can look and see, oh wow, people get past that. They're there, and so there's tons and tons and tons of reasons. And the reality is, tennis is a low-level sport in the U.S., where in many other countries it is in the top 2 or 3 sports, and they don't point towards college. From a very early age. Those that come take U.S. college scholarships are the ones that were not good enough to make it to the pro level. So, it's a fallback kind of thing. And looking at the pro rankings, they seem to be doing better in many cases than how we're doing. So, I don't know. Maybe we'll get some Grand Slam champions because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, we've been going a half hour here. I think we ought to let you get back to work and let our viewers get back to their day.
To see who walked behind me. I probably could have had some guests, but I have no idea who has walked behind me unless they came from
mostly a bunch of kids. Yeah,
okay.
Mostly a bunch of kids.
Well,
but anyway, glad to see you back. Yeah, glad to see you back out there, and it'll be interesting to watch the summer evolve, and I'm sure we'll continue talking about it.
Yes, ma'am. Have a great week. And I hope that, somebody will get out and play singles with you, because I think doubles might be your scary bugaboo at the moment with that many people.
It is.
Maybe somebody will get out and, I had one of the kids hit with me, actually, the young lady whose parents had been sitting behind me. She was the first one. I guess the second one that I hit she hit with me for about half an hour. And I said, you got to hit the ball right to me. And my feet really didn't move. There was a ball that literally bounced twice about 3 feet in front of me, and my brain's saying go, and all that's happening is I'm bending at the waist and reaching for the ball. So maybe you can find somebody that'll have pity on you and get out, let you get
That's
going.
what I need. Well, have a great week, Dewey, and we'll see y'all next Wednesday.
Okay. Talk to you later.
Okay.
Bye.
If I come here and go over here, that's what? Oh. That's close.